The council chamber of Orta's Prime was a cathedral of power. Walls of silvered crystal rose hundreds of meters high, refracting starlight into shifting colors. From a distance, it looked like a galaxy suspended in glass. Within, thousands of alien delegates murmured in a dozen frequencies, their voices translated into the air by hovering drones. At the lowest tier, the human delegation sat quietly in their modest enclave, 5 black-suited diplomats under the blue and white flag of Earth. Their faces were calm, impassive. Only the faint movement of their eyes betrayed tension. At their center stood Ambassador Elias Thorne. Once a fleet admiral, now the voice of humanity. His uniform was immaculate, his posture military even beneath the diplomatic robes. A scar traced the edge of his temple, a reminder of the siege of Europa, when the Zyrene called humans unfit for civilized warfare. He had learned long ago to measure silence as a weapon. At the opposite end of the hall, the High Council dais shimmered with alien forms, insectoid, crystalline, avian, gelatinous. At its heart stood Archon Veldrak of Zyrene, his faceted body glowing faintly from within, each word resonating like music over shattered glass. Humans, Veldrak began, his tone dripping with practiced superiority, once again demand parity with elder species. They wish to alter our trade laws, our defense protocols, even our peace accords, though they have barely emerged from their gravity well for a century. The laughter began softly, the clicking mandibles of the Threx, the trilling notes of the Orlithai, the booming echoes of the Tarvok warbrood. Even the translation drones stuttered, struggling to interpret mockery. Veldrak spread his crystalline limbs wide. "Tell me, Ambassador Thorne, is this presumption what your kind calls diplomacy?" Thorne didn't blink. "We call it equality, Archon. And we've earned it. Every war humanity fought in the last century was for peace you now enjoy." More laughter. Someone in the upper tiers, a Vekri merchant with 6 golden eyes, shouted, "Peace through luck and savagery." Thorne glanced toward the source, then back to Veldrak. "You mistake survival for luck," he said quietly, "and restraint for weakness." Veldrak leaned forward, voice amplified by the chamber's crystalline acoustics. "Restraint? You speak of restraint, when your kind burned half the Orion frontier during your so-called defensive war." The council's amusement grew louder. Veldrak turned, his facets glittering. "Perhaps the humans seek to lecture us on morality, yes? The same species who annihilated their own home colonies over resources." The hall erupted, laughter like thunder, like rain, like the grinding of stone. The kind of laughter that wasn't just dismissal, it was ritual humiliation. Thorne stood very still. Behind him, one of his aides whispered, "Sir, should we adjourn?" He raised a hand slightly. "No." Veldrak was smiling, or at least, the crystalline distortion that passed for one. "You see, Ambassador, this council has endured for 10 millennia. We welcomed your species with patience, offered you peace, education, access to our networks. Yet here you stand, demanding to be treated as equals. And yet," Thorne said evenly, "we were the only ones who came when the Zyrene fleet called for aid at the Battle of Mirok." The room quieted for a moment. It was a small truth, but it cut deep. Veldrak's glow dimmed. "Ancient history," he hissed. "History is written by survivors," Thorne replied. "And humanity keeps surviving." A murmur ran through the delegates. Disapproval, perhaps, or something like discomfort. No one spoke against Veldrak, though. No one ever did. The Archon's voice turned cold. "The Council votes now. On the matter of revoking Earth's voting privileges, on account of persistent instability, militarization, and emotional volatility." Dozens of holographic sigils ignited in the air, Council votes, one by one. Each flare of light was another betrayal. When it ended, the result blazed across the chamber. Unanimous, except one. Veldrak smiled again. "So decided. Humanity is no longer a voting member of this council. You will, of course, remain bound by existing treaties." Thorne stared up at the sigils. Bound, he repeated, as though tasting the word. He nodded once to his aides. Then he looked back at the Archon. Understood, he said. Earth will honor your decision. Veldrak inclined his head, satisfied. See? At last, some human humility. Thorn turned to leave. His footfalls echoed against the chamber's mirrored floor, 5 slow steps before he stopped. Without looking back, he spoke, his voice low but amplified through every translation drone in the room. The Council has spoken. So will humanity. The sound carried, clear, calm, and final. Then he walked out. Hours later, Earth Embassy Ortis Prime. The human embassy was dark except for the flicker of old analog monitors. Thorn stood alone, hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the twin suns. Behind him, the younger aides whispered nervously. Sir, should we request a meeting with the Terran Assembly? No, Thorn said. Transmit this message to all Terran outposts and colonies. Priority 1. Effective immediately, all interstellar treaties are terminated. All Council communications are to be ignored. All trade lanes are to be shut down. Withdraw all human personnel from Council worlds. The aide hesitated. Sir, that's an order, Thorn said quietly. He turned, eyes like steel under shadow. They wanted humility. We'll give them silence instead. The aide swallowed hard and began typing. As the message spread through encrypted quantum relays, 1,000 lights on the board turned red. The ambassador looked up at the stars outside, thousands of alien worlds glittering in the void. He whispered, Let them laugh while they still can. The first transmissions reached Ortis Prime 12 hours later. At first, they were dismissed as a glitch, a quirk in the relay network. But by dawn on the Council's neutral world, dozens of alien embassies reported the same anomaly. Every human communication channel, from diplomatic relays to trade networks, had gone dark. No response codes, no acknowledgements, no human presence online. By midday, it wasn't a glitch, it was a blackout. The Earth Embassy Ortis Prime. Inside the sealed embassy, all Terran insignias had been stripped from the walls. The Earth flag was folded, placed carefully into a secure case. Outside, alien news drones hovered in confusion, recording the blacked-out windows and locked gate. Inside, Ambassador Elias Thorn sat alone at his desk, watching encrypted messages roll in from the Sol relay. The data was tight-beamed, compressed, heavily encoded, Earth's oldest and most secure communication format, one the Council's AI translators couldn't read. He read the final message twice, then once more for certainty. Transmission confirmed. Global Defense Network in full readiness. Strategic Command authorizes autonomous withdrawal protocol. Awaiting diplomatic containment orders. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. The weight of it wasn't fear. It was inevitability. Behind him, Commander Imani Ray, his security chief, approached. She'd served with Thorn decades ago during the Europa Reclamation War. Her voice was low, steady. They're asking questions out there. Zyrene intelligence ships are already pinging our relay signatures. They'll notice soon. Thorn nodded. They were always going to notice. The point is that they won't understand. Earth's cutting itself off completely? Not cutting off, he corrected. Recalibrating. Ray frowned. To what? To whatever comes after trust. The Council in confusion. Meanwhile, chaos rippled through the Galactic Council. Delegates argued in their floating chambers, overlapping in waves of distortion. The Zyrene were the first to demand action, accusing Earth of sabotage. The Orlithai urged restraint. Humans are volatile, yes, but predictable, they said. But then came reports that shattered that illusion. From the Drek mining colonies came a warning. All human-owned or freighters had vanished. From the Tarvok frontier, mercantile guilds reported their human security contractors had resigned, entire battalions leaving overnight. And across the outer trade lanes, jump gates once stabilized by Terran engineers flickered offline, one by one, plunging sectors into logistical chaos. In less than a day, every system that had relied on human infrastructure began to fracture. Veldrak watched it unfold from the Zyrene command chamber, crystalline fingers tapping the console. "They're retreating," he hissed to his aide. "Good. Let them sulk." But the aide hesitated. "Archon, reports indicate the human military networks, satellite grids, orbital arrays, are reactivating." Veldrak turned sharply. "Reactivating?" "Yes, Archon. Not for defense. For synchronization." A long, brittle silence followed. "Earth orbit, strategic command." Far across the void, above the blue curve of Earth, the Terran Strategic Command array floated in the darkness, a ring of stations linked by pulsing threads of light. The system hadn't operated at full capacity in 40 years. Now, every node was glowing. Within the central control hub, Admiral Kira Holt, commander of the Unified Defense Network, reviewed a wall of status reports. One by one, Earth's orbital fleets came online. Carrier groups, defense satellites, automated shipyards, all reconnected through the Ares protocol, a failsafe meant only for total isolation. Holt turned to her communications officer. "Status of the diplomatic corps? All assets withdrawn or in transit. Only Ambassador Thorn remains on Ortis Prime." "And the treaties?" "Nullified, ma'am. Every one of them." The Admiral nodded, jaw tight. "Good. Keep it that way." She stared at the holographic map of the Milky Way, now dotted with red human colonies amid seas of blue alien domains. For the first time in a century, Earth stood alone, but united. "Let them wonder what we're doing," she said quietly. "That's the first move." Back on Ortis Prime, the embassy was under surveillance now. Zyrene drones hovered outside like silent predators, scanning for transmissions. Inside, Thorn remained calm, sipping cold coffee as he reviewed news reports from Alien Network. The headlines were predictable. Human defiance or breakdown? Earth severs ties. A risk to galactic stability? Council demands explanation. None of them understood what they were seeing. Ray entered with a datapad. "Sir, we've intercepted Council chatter. They're preparing a formal inquiry." "Let them," Thorn said, not looking up. "By the time they vote on a statement, they'll already be obsolete." Ray paused. "You think they'll move militarily?" Thorn smiled faintly. "They won't dare. Not yet. They're still trying to figure out whether they offended us, or awakened something worse." A soft chime echoed through the room, a secure burst from the Soul Relay. Thorn keyed it open. A single line appeared. "Project Aegis initiated. Estimated timeline, 72 hours. Thorn exhaled through his nose, slowly. Ray looked over his shoulder. "What is Aegis?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes were distant, focused on something only he could see. "Insurance," he said at last. "The kind you hope you never need." He closed the terminal and stood. "Pack everything. We're leaving within the hour." "Destination?" "Home," Thorn said. "It's time the galaxy remembered where the line is drawn." Galactic Newsfeed, 36 hours later. Across thousands of worlds, civilian channels broadcast something unprecedented. The official Terran broadcast, crisp, emotionless, multilingual, repeated in every known frequency. By order of the Terran Assembly, all external diplomatic and trade relations are suspended indefinitely. Terran space is now restricted. Unauthorized entry will be treated as hostile incursion. Do not contact us. Do not approach our systems. We will not answer again. The message repeated once more, then ended with the old Earth insignia. The pale blue sphere, haloed by a single white star. Then, nothing. Silence. The galaxy, used to the noisy, brash, endlessly inventive humans, suddenly felt smaller. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Mars, beneath the red dust plains, a long-buried hangar hummed to life. Massive blast doors shifted under centuries of sand. Inside, dozens of dark, angular ships powered up, their hulls marked with the insignia of the Earth Defense Vanguard, a program the Council had believed decommissioned generations ago. A single AI voice broke the silence. Command authentication, Aegis. Phase 1, commence awakening sequence. Hydraulic locks disengaged. Engines thrummed. And in the dim crimson glow, 1,000 dormant weapons opened their eyes. The galaxy had known war, but never absence. Now, that absence echoed louder than any weapon. Across the hyperlanes, automated relays that once carried millions of human transmissions pulsed once, and went dark. Trade stations that relied on Terran engineers stood frozen. Supply lines collapsed. Medical shipments failed. The loss of Earth's infrastructure hit like a shockwave. And in the heart of it all, the Galactic Council began to fracture. The Council Emergency Session. The chamber of Ortis Prime, once a monument to order, was chaos incarnate. The sound of alien voices overlapped in rage, fear, and disbelief. Holographic displays showed dozens of sectors going offline, their routes blinking red as the Council's commerce grid disintegrated. Human sabotage, hissed the Zyrene delegate. They were integral to every system. You let them near everything, shouted a Tarvok warlord. The Orlithai representative folded her translucent wings, speaking softly. Perhaps we should have listened to their grievances. Veldrak's crystalline form pulsed with angry light. You suggest capitulation to apes? They've always been unstable. This is manipulation, blackmail. But beneath the Council's noise, the truth was spreading like a virus. Every world that had mocked, taxed, or exploited human systems now depended on them, and without human cooperation, the entire galactic web was grinding to a halt. Broadcast. Zyrene Newsnet. The screen flickered with panic. A Zyrene newscaster stood before a star map filled with warning icons. Emergency alerts continue across the Orion Reach and Sol sector, she said, her crystalline skin dimmed to amber. Thousands of outposts have lost navigation data, while hundreds of AI cores report corrupted algorithms linked to human coding protocols. The Council assures the public there is no immediate danger. The feed cut. Static. Then, for 3 seconds, something else appeared, a simple human symbol, a circle of 12 stars around a blue sphere. Then nothing. Billions saw it. None understood it. Meanwhile, en route to Earth, the human diplomatic cruiser Artemis drifted through the darkness between stars. Inside, Ambassador Elias Thorne stood before a panoramic viewport, watching the faint shimmer of Mars far ahead. Commander Ray approached quietly. We're being followed. Zyrene stealth corvette, range 500,000 kilometers. They're trying to trace our jump signature. Thorne didn't turn. Let them look. You're not concerned? Concern implies they matter. He finally looked up, eyes reflecting the distant glow of Earth. They laughed at us in that chamber, Imani. But the thing about humanity is, we remember why we built everything. Every relay, every shipyard, every satellite. Not to serve them. To survive them. He paused, as if listening to something far away. And now we're done surviving. Mars, Project Aegis Command. The underground facility was a cathedral of metal and silence. Miles beneath the Martian surface, thousands of engineers worked in perfect synchrony, guided by old AIs and military overseers. The air trembled with energy. A holographic map of the Milky Way spun in the command center, blue human systems pulsing faintly. Admiral Kira Holt stood before it, addressing a dozen officers. Status of Aegis Fleet? All platforms report readiness. Power cores at 94%. AI combat networks linked and dormant, awaiting go code. Civil evacuation? Complete. Outer colonies are secure in black site. Civilian traffic hidden behind false transponder networks. Good, Holt said. Then it's time. She turned to the main console and keyed in her code. A voice, calm, artificial, ancient, spoke through the room. Authentication. Admiral Holt. Confirm Aegis Prime activation. Holt exhaled. Confirm. Acknowledged. Phase 2 commencing. Estimated synchronization, 48 hours. The room dimmed. Dozens of massive holographic icons blinked alive, orbital weapon arrays, stealth fleets, defense platforms. Humanity's hidden power, buried under centuries of treaties and silence, reawakening. Let them call us savages, Holt said. We'll show them civilization's true cost. Back at the council, 24 hours later. Veldrak was furious. He slammed a crystalline limb against the council table, the impact cracking the dais. Where are their fleets? Where are their colonies? No sensors, no signals, nothing. They cannot simply vanish. An Orlithai scientist stepped forward timidly. They haven't vanished, Archon. They've withdrawn. The humans appear to have activated a multi-layered distortion field over their territories. We can't see into their systems at all. It's like they never existed. Veldrak's glow dimmed in alarm. You mean they've blacked out space itself? Yes, Archon. And whatever energy field they're using, it's not council tech. Veldrak froze. Because deep down, he remembered the rumors. The secret Earth projects the council had ordered dismantled. The ones the humans had promised were gone. Now it was clear they had never been gone, just hidden. Earth, the blue planet returns to darkness. From orbit, Earth glowed faintly beneath a lattice of defense satellites. The cities were still lit, but the signals outward had ceased. To the galaxy, Earth now looked silent. To its people, it was alive with motion. Factories worked around the clock. Old shipyards reopened. Veterans re-enlisted. The Terran Assembly, once a civilian government, now sat in secure underground halls, guided by Thorn's message and Holt's authority. The Assembly Speaker's final decree echoed through every channel on the planet. We gave them peace. They laughed. We gave them trust. They mocked. Now we give them silence, and may they pray it lasts. Council Intelligence Briefing, Declassified Fragment. Analysis Summary. Human strategic behavior post-treaty collapse demonstrates coordinated withdrawal and internal militarization. Estimated operational capacity, unknown. Probability of deterrent weapon deployment, high. Recommendation: establish direct communication with Ambassador Thorn before escalation. Status update: unable to locate Ambassador Thorn. His vessel's quantum signature no longer exists. Aboard the human cruiser Artemis, the stars stretched into blinding white as the ship broke into hyperspace. Thorn stood alone in the command chamber, watching the streaking light. His reflection looked older, harder. Commander Ray entered quietly. Sir, Project Aegis reports Phase 2 initiated. Mars Command requests final authorization for Phase 3. Thorn didn't answer immediately. He turned from the stars and faced her. They think we're retaliating, he said. They don't understand. Retaliation is emotional. This. He gestured toward the viewport, where the stars began to twist. This is correction. He pressed his thumb to the console. Authorization, Thorn. Proceed with Phase 3. The ship's AI confirmed. Aegis. Final phase initialized. Outside, the Artemis hull shimmered, its plating folding into something new, something invisible. The ship vanished from known space. 3 days later, the edge of Zyrene space. A Zyrene patrol cruiser drifted silently along the border of Terran territory. The captain, half crystalline, half organic, stared at the void ahead, sensors probing for activity. Suddenly, the stars shifted. At first, it looked like a mirage, a faint shimmer of blue, then hundreds, then thousands of them. The sensors screamed with static as the sky filled with dark shape. Shit. The Zyrene patrol ship's last transmission ended mid-sentence. When the Council retrieved the fragments, the only image that remained was a blurred horizon of light, as if the stars themselves had opened their eyes. That was the first sign. The second came 3 hours later, when the Threxian trade route through the Vega corridor collapsed. All NAV buoys, maintained for decades by human contractors, had gone offline simultaneously. Thousands of freighters were stranded, blind in the dark. And then the reports began pouring in from every corner of the galaxy. Not of attacks, not even of threats, just the disappearance of everything human-built. It was as if Earth had erased itself from existence. The Galactic Council, Ortis Prime. The emergency chamber was silent now. The laughter that had once filled it was gone. Veldrak stood at the dais, his crystalline form dimmed and fractured from exhaustion. Dozens of alien envoys hovered in fearful silence, their holographic translators flickering. "Report," Veldrak demanded. His voice was sharp but hollow. A Tarvok general, her armored plates cracked from sleepless cycles, responded. "We've lost visual and quantum telemetry across all Terran sectors. Every drone, every satellite, nothing. It's like space itself refuses to transmit." Veldrak's glow dimmed further. "And their fleets?" "Vanished, Archon. But gravitational readings suggest movement. Massive movement. Something large is out there." The chamber erupted in murmurs again. Words like cloaking fields, dimensional shadows, and supermass structures bounced across the hall. Veldrak slammed a limb on the table. "Enough. You think they're preparing for war? They have no allies, no colonies, no council support. Humanity cannot face the entire galaxy." A low voice answered from the side. "They don't have to." Every eye turned. It was the Orlithai scientist from earlier, her wings dimly glowing in the chamber light. "What did you say?" Veldrak hissed. "They don't need allies," she repeated softly. "They've spent a century building systems no one understood. Power grids no one could replicate. Weapons no one could study. We used them because they were efficient. We never asked why." She raised her gaze. "Maybe now we're about to find out." Earth Defense Vanguard, Command Broadcast, Classified. "All units, this is Admiral Holt. Confirm Readiness Condition Omega. All fleets remain under silent order. No transmissions. No external engagement unless provoked. Project Aegis is now fully operational. Maintain the veil." The transmission repeated through encrypted quantum channels invisible to the galaxy. In orbit above Mars, Fleet Group Sol, hundreds of ships shaped like dark blades, shifted silently into new formations. Each vessel was covered in matte black armor, edges bending light itself. No engine glow. No visible propulsion. Just silent, geometric death drifting in perfect alignment. Inside the flagship Erebus, Admiral Holt stood before the command hollow. The blue sphere of Earth rotated slowly above the console. "Status of ghost fleets?" she asked. "Alpha and Beta groups have reached the edges of Zyrene space. Gamma is en route to the Council periphery. All units under full stealth protocol." Holt nodded. "Then Phase 4 begins. The lesson phase." Her second-in-command frowned. "Lesson, ma'am?" "Respect," she said. "We gave them peace, and they mistook it for compliance. It's time they remember the cost of peace." Meanwhile, Ortis Prime, 18 hours later. At first, it came as a whisper. A faint tremor across the planet's magnetosphere. Too soft for alarms, too slow for weapons tracking. Then, every communication satellite above the Council's capital blinked, once, and powered down. Veldrak's aides screamed for defensive fields, but the systems refused to respond. The sky above the Council tower dimmed. A shadow crossed the twin suns. When the emergency shutters retracted, the Council chamber looked up into the heavens, and saw them. A fleet. Silent. Black. Endless. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of ships, hanging motionless above the planet's atmosphere, their silhouettes blotting out the light. Their hulls bore no markings, but every being in that chamber knew who they belonged to. Humanity had returned. Planetary orbit, human flagship Erebus. Admiral Holt stood before a projection of the Council world. Her face was lit by faint red tactical light. "Transmit the message," she ordered. A comms officer nodded. "Signal encrypted?" "Unencrypted," Holt said. "They need to hear it raw." Across every open frequency, on every world connected to the Council's network, a single human voice echoed, calm, composed, and unmistakable. "This is Admiral Kira Holt of the Terran Defense Command. Your Council voted to strip humanity of voice, of parity, of dignity. Consider this the fulfillment of your vote. You wished for a galaxy without us. Now you have one." A pause. Then, with quiet finality, "All human systems are sovereign. Any attempt to cross our borders will be answered. Not with war. With erasure." The signal ended. No static. No distortion. Just silence. The councils collapsed. Veldrak stood trembling, crystalline plates cracking under strain. "They wouldn't dare," he whispered. "They can't." But then came the final broadcast. A hollow flared in the air before him. Elias Thorne, standing aboard the Artemis, his expression calm, resolute. "Archon Veldrak," he said, "you once mocked humanity's restraint. You asked if our kind understood diplomacy. We do. It's when you offer peace, and they mistake it for weakness. This is not vengeance, Archon. It's correction. You will not see our fleets again. You will not find our worlds. We have redrawn the map. We will grow, we will expand, and you will not know where, only that you will never mock Earth again." Thorne leaned forward slightly. "And should you ever forget this lesson, look to your stars. If they ever go dark again, that's us, remembering." The transmission ended. Veldrak sank to the floor. The chamber was silent. Outside, the human fleet began to move, silently turning, one by one, and vanishing into folds of space as if swallowed by the void. No one dared follow. Aftermath, 2 years later. The galaxy adapted. Slowly. Fearfully. Trade routes rerouted around Terran space. The Council rebuilt, but it was smaller, quieter. No one laughed at the humans anymore. They became a myth again, a legend whispered to new diplomats. Don't provoke the species that ended every treaty overnight. And in the quiet of Sol System, Earth thrived. Its skies clear, its people united. Beneath the calm blue clouds, Ambassador Thorne walked the rebuilt halls of the Terran Assembly, stopping to look at the stars through the glass dome. Commander Ray approached. "You think they've learned?" Thorne smiled faintly. "They've learned to fear us. That's enough, for now." He looked upward. "Because someday they'll forget again. And when they do, we'll remind them what it means to mock the species that survived extinction twice." 50 years had passed since Earth withdrew from the galaxy. To most of the younger species, humans were legends, ancient ghosts who had once walked among the stars and then vanished into the dark. Their technology remained, scattered across the galaxy like relics. Silent satellites, unbreakable alloys, machines that still functioned after decades without maintenance. But no human voice had been heard since the Aegis event. The Galactic Council, smaller now, humbled, had rebuilt its chamber. The walls were no longer crystal and gold, but matte gray, modest. 1,000 worlds had fallen, and 1,000 more had learned humility. Yet still, curiosity had a way of eroding caution. And among the younger races, there was one that had never seen the old wars. The Corran ascendancy, proud, restless, and convinced that humanity's silence was bluff. They were wrong. The Corran expedition. The expedition began in secrecy. A single cruiser, Rapture of Dawn, left Corran Prime under the pretense of deep space research. Its true purpose was far more reckless, to breach the ancient borders of Terran space, find whatever ruins or survivors might remain, and claim their secrets. The captain of the Rapture was Vel Corin, a descendant of the once mighty Zyrene Archon Veldrak. He carried his ancestors' bitterness like a crown. "They hid because they feared us," he told his crew. "They built myths to keep us away. But myths fade. We will see what ghosts hide behind their silence." As the ship crossed the invisible threshold once marked by human warning buoys, nothing happened. No alarms. No defenses. Only silence. The crew relaxed. Some even laughed. Then the stars began to move. The void that wasn't empty. At first it was subtle, background radiation spiking, navigation systems stuttering. Then the ship's quantum core began receiving untraceable pings, signals bouncing from nowhere. Ghost echoes, the navigator murmured. No, said the science officer, staring at her console. They're readings of us. Someone's scanning our DNA profiles. Vel-Corin stiffened. From where? Everywhere. The viewport filled with shifting light. Something vast was unfolding in the void, invisible at first, then taking shape as faint silhouettes, blacker than space itself. Hundreds, no thousands. The stars disappeared. Engines roared, but the Rapture couldn't move. Gravity fields, precise, surgical, locked it in place. A human voice echoed through the ship's comms, calm and impossibly clear. Unregistered vessel, you have crossed into sovereign Terran territory. State your intent. Vel-Corin froze. This isn't possible. They're extinct. The voice repeated. No emotion, no threat, just authority. State your intent. Corin straightened, forcing his voice steady. This is Captain Vel-Corin of the Corin Ascendancy. We come in peace, seeking knowledge. A pause. Then the voice replied. Knowledge requires permission. You have none. The screen flared white. Transmission. Council emergency feed. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the feed appeared, hijacked through a secure relay. The image was distorted, static, interference, but the audio was unmistakable. Unauthorized vessel Rapture of Dawn intercepted, Terran defense grid active. Then a flash. Then a voice. To the Council of Ortis Prime, it said, calm and cold. You once spoke for the galaxy when you mocked us. You said humanity was unfit for the stars. 50 years ago, you learned the cost of that arrogance. The image resolved, just enough for them to see the speaker. Ambassador Elias Thorne, unchanged, his face older only in gravity, not in time. We have watched your rebuilding. We have seen your restraint. But you have forgotten again. He leaned forward, eyes burning like twin storms. Let this be the last reminder. The borders are not walls. They are warnings. Cross them again, and the galaxy will learn silence as we did. The feed cut. For a full minute, no one spoke in the council hall. Then, in the quiet, someone whispered. Were those recordings? Or did he? Veldrak's successor, the Zyrene regent, finished the thought softly. It doesn't matter. He was never talking to us. He was talking to history. The return of the ghost. Weeks later, a convoy of Corin ships ventured to the coordinates where the Rapture of Dawn had vanished. They found nothing. No wreckage. No debris. Not even gravitational disturbance. Only a single buoy floating in the void. It carried a message in Old Terran Standard. Curiosity is the seed of extinction. Respect is the soil of peace. E.T. No one knew whether the initials meant Elias Thorne or Earth Terra itself. No one dared ask. Earth, present day. Beneath the soft blue skies of a peaceful planet, Elias Thorne walked along the observation deck of the Terran Assembly Spire. Far below, cities gleamed, united, efficient, alive. Above, the sky shimmered faintly where the orbital shields refracted sunlight. The defense grid was invisible, but always awake. Commander Imani Ray, older now, joined him. Her uniform bore no rank. Humanity needed none anymore. They came again, she said. Thorne nodded. I know. I saw the feed. Do you think it's over? Thorne smiled faintly. It never is. But we've given them time. And time is the greatest mercy we have left. He placed a hand on the glass, watching clouds drift over the Atlantic. Do you ever miss it? Ray asked. The old days, the council, the noise, the politics? Thorne's eyes softened. No. The silence suits us. For now. Then, in the distant sky, something flashed, a ship cutting silently through the stratosphere, black and sleek. One of the Aegis fleet on patrol. Ray followed his gaze. What do you think they see when they look at us now? Thorn smiled, the faintest edge of steel in his voice. They see what they always feared. A species that learned how to survive everything, even peace. He turned and walked away, his reflection fading into the glass. Above, the stars shimmered faintly as though listening. And somewhere in the void, the ghost fleet drifted through the dark, silent, patient, eternal. Waiting. Epilogue. Humans don't conquer. They endure. And when endurance is mistaken for weakness, the galaxy learns what it means to be corrected. Extract from The Lost Council Chronicles, 92 years after the Aegis event.